Get ready. It's going to be a very, very intense journey.
No. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Frame Skip. Sorry about that. George was talking nonsense over here.
Yeah, George.
This is your weekly dose of video game entertainment. I am joined by the voice of the South, Andie Eller.
If you want to call this entertainment, I suppose you could. Is it entertaining? I don't know.
I think it's entertaining. I wish that other people thought that.
Well, it's also informative. So is it entertaining or is it edutainment?
That's true.
Is that a better category for our podcast?
Edutainment.
Do not pretend like this is an educational podcast.
People
get learned once in a while.
I'd say this is approaching like documentary almost about our lives.
It will be in a documentary someday, categorizing my fall to chaotic insanity.
Yeah, do you ever think this podcast is going to be like used as evidence in a court trial for any of us?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Like guaranteed.
George, how are you this week? That's George's office, by the way.
Why did Seth punch out every mannequin in the store? It's like, I don't know. Let's listen to the podcast released the day before to see what kind of mood he was in.
Do you guys know of Nalgene bottles?
Yeah.
Like the plastic water bottles, yeah.
So in the warehouse that I used to work at, that Elijah works at, we used to sell so many Nalgene bottles. We had an entire aisle of just Nalgene bottles stacked 30 feet high in these cardboard boxes. And the first time I quit there when I was like 19, I walked down that aisle and punched a hole in every single one of those boxes for fun my last day. Just for funsies.
That sounds fun. Fun. You just committed to a crime. Destruction of another person's property.
My friend Chris Chamberlain, he stayed working there for a long time. And he was like, for years I would go back and I would find a box with a hole in it. I was like, well, that's one of Seth's. And funny enough, about a year later, they hired me back. So,
did he turn all the boxes around so they couldn't see the holes and they just forgot about your crime against cardboard? Is that?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
But they clearly didn't ship them out like that. They would have had to rebox them. Then someone gets that package and they're like, wow, there's a fist-shaped hole in the side of this box of bottles. But that's the kind of guy I was.
Really quickly, I did something I never do last week. I wasn't on the podcast, so I listened to the podcast because I wasn't on it. I don't like. You don't listen to shows you're on, right? That's weird.
No.
Sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes I go back and listen to years old episodes of podcasts.
That's a little different.
That's different. That's different. That's different. But you don't listen to you don't put out an episode of this and then listen to the next week, right?
No.
Okay. Well, I listened to last week's episode because I wasn't on it. I was grinding in a video game. I can't wait to talk about it. And you had a guest on, Pedro, who's like, yeah, it's so funny. The first episode I show up for, and George can't be bothered to show up. I thought we were going to talk about the Celtics sucking. I thought we were going to talk about the Bruins sucking. Pedro, my fucking guy, you were there because I couldn't make it. That's why you were on the episode. Just so we're 100% clear. It wasn't like, oh, he's too scared to show up. It's like, no, you were filling in for me because I couldn't be present. Just so we're clear. Secondly, if you're going to take a shot at one of my sports teams, stick to the Red Sox. All right, stick to the Patriots. Fuck, even stick to the Bruins. They were on a losing streak, although they did wax the Leafs last night 4-1. The Celtics are number one in the East by a 5-game margin, man. Leave the fucking Celtics alone. Don't talk smack about the Celtics. I can't wait to see the Knicks go out in round 1 this year against the goddamn Heat. It's going to be great. Have fun, you fucking punk. Also, I thought you had some pretty insightful things to say on that podcast. So you were a great fill-in. Thank you for being there. But keep
George.
My fucking sports teams out your mouth.
Oh my God.
Wow. I like the energy this week. We are firing on all cylinders. Good stuff.
This is a good rivalry we've got here.
Yeah.
I think we need to keep this going where George and Pedro never appear on the same podcast and they just hurl insults at each other.
Then people are People are gonna think we're the same person, right? It's like, why haven't we seen Clark Kent and Superman in the same room? Why haven't we seen Pedro and George? They're both Latino. They're both not black. Why aren't they in the same room ever? Jesus Christ, Seth.
Dude, listen. Me and Caitlin have been talking about this all week, and I am not convinced that he's not fucking with me. All right. Like,
okay. All right.
I vividly remember this, George, and I've known him forever, and I have straight up called him black to his face, and he hasn't flinched. So I don't understand what's going on. All right. Like, I'm losing my mind.
Just accept
you think
reality.
He just thought you were being racist, and yeah, he probably just thought you were being racist and didn't want to address it head on. Didn't want to fracture the relationship.
No, he would address it and wouldn't fracture the relationship. Okay. So I don't know, man. I am losing it over here.
Also,
but
I was listening to him talk shit about the Celtics, which again, you can talk shit about the Patriots, you can talk shit even about the Bruins, even though they're like second in the Atlantic East, whatever. It's fine. I remember texting you like as soon as you started talking shit because I started listening the next day, and I was like drinking wine, playing Final Fantasy, and he started talking shit. And I immediately texted you. I was like, "Yo, Seth, how big is he?" And then you didn't respond because I think you were at work or you were asleep, whichever. Both are great reasons to not text someone back. And then he started talking. It's just like, yeah, so I was lifting weights at the prison later. I was like, oh no, I don't want to fight him. I just don't want to fight him.
I didn't respond because
this is what the Seth. I don't want to.
At me looks like.
I didn't send it to you individually. I sent it into the group.
Oh, I didn't see it.
So, sorry. George, I got to be honest. I thought the reason you were asking this was something that took me a little by surprise. No offense, Pedro. No offense. But Pedro was very close to his webcam last week. Very close. Is that a common thing on Alpha Nerds?
Yes, I have to help him adjust like his lighting and stuff all the time. Okay. And sometimes I'm like,
I was a little surprised. It was like I could almost feel him in my screen.
He works out, but he has a parent in their 60s energy when it comes to technology. All right, maybe I can take him. I don't know.
Hold on a second.
I can't. He works out of a prison. No, I can't beat him.
We're talking about two people being the same. Pedro, Coach. What?
Yeah, I don't know.
It is like Link, Shadow Link in the Water Temple, right?
Yeah, Link and Shadow Link. You're right because Pedro's much darker than Coach. One could say almost black.
So Pedro is in the chat. He says, "No, you can't, little boy. Daddy is here."
I'm also Latino, so like, can you come on, Seth, leave us alone.
Listen, man, I don't know what's going on.
You can't handle either of our Latino heat. It's fine. Move on. Take it. It's gonna be okay.
Viva la Rosa.
Okay. you get.
This is really progressed.
I'm gonna give you.
Well, don't say Latino heat and don't expect me to pop out the Eddie Guerrero. All right, awesome. How you been this week?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It's been a fun week. I haven't been doing much of anything except spending money. So,
hell yeah,
that's been the big thing I've been doing this week. I bought a new monitor that is quite a bit larger than my old monitors, and it's got 1440p and HDR. And
now, did you feel the need to buy the new monitor because you got the new graphics card?
That's exactly why.
I knew it.
That's exactly why. Because I was like, you know what? I'm getting this. Why not this as well? So
can I ask a dumb question about your new monitor?
Yeah.
Is ray tracing something that a monitor can handle, or is that something that like a graphics component handles?
Just the graphics card. So really doesn't have anything to do with the monitor, to be honest. But really, when it comes down,
sure if there was like lumens that like you could only see on a higher refresh rate or like a higher clarity screen.
When it really comes down to it, I think there are three big things on a monitor that you would look for if you're like gaming, which of course would be the resolution, HDR, and no, I've got four things actually. I lied. The hertz of the monitor. So if it can go up to like 160, which mine can, and then G-Sync.
Wait, how is hertz and refresh are different?
So hertz and refresh rate are basically the same. So like, let's say your game's running at 120 hertz, it's running at 120 frames. So
okay.
It's essentially the same thing. But then the fourth thing would be G-Sync or FreeSync if you're gaming on computer, because there's like a connection between.
Pisses me off, dude.
Yeah.
Oh.
It basically makes it, you know how there's like some games have screen tearing, George, where like you'll look up and down and you'll see like lines appear on the screen as you're looking around?
Yeah.
G-Sync or FreeSync are monitor pieces, like things that are built into the monitor. I don't exactly know how this works, but it provides more of like a direct connection to the graphics card so that you don't have to enable V-Sync to get rid of the screen tearing. So like the monitor itself,
V-Sync, not to be confused with G-Sync.
Correct. V-Sync is a setting in most games which will add a little bit of lag, but it syncs your monitor with the graphics card so that the screen tearing doesn't happen.
Except
there's a performance hit.
There's almost no support for Radeon, which I was not prepared for.
Yeah.
Or AMD.
Yeah. I went way too technical.
Kind of like no, it's. I mean, I understood it, so it wasn't that technical. I've always been like a console gamer, where like even then, like people complain about performance versus, was it performance versus quality mode, right?
Yeah.
Or
right.
Performance, whatever the two modes you can choose between. Even then, people complain. I'm like, I didn't really notice anything. Like I grew up playing on N64. I was just kind of used to concessions on a console. But. Is it the way you talk about it? Is it like basically what a RetroTink does for older consoles to be able to play on like a new one, where it just smooths shit out like
kind of
on a hardware side?
Somewhat, not quite that level, but it's essentially there's some hardware on the monitor is what it really comes down to that assists. Not in the same way,
George. What you're talking about, George, that there's some settings in like graphics cards that can do that. I can open up my graphics card control panel and tinker with all kinds of outgoing graphics settings, and some of them have like AI upscaling and stuff like that generally you would want to turn off and not use because it doesn't work very well.
Right. But point being, my monitor's got all that, so I'm excited to have it. And as you mentioned, I bought a 4070 Super, which should be coming tomorrow. So we have a 1060 in our computer right now, and it's like really starting to show its age. And so I'm excited to have something a little stronger.
That's awesome. That's a huge upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
Not a little stronger. That's a massive amount.
Yeah.
With older components like that, do you like resell them? Like what do you do with that?
So I'm curious about this question. This is an interesting question, George. Seth, what have you done? Because I'll be honest, George, every time I've upgraded, I still have everything and I want to get rid of it, but I don't know what to do. I guess you can recycle the parts.
I mean, at this point, older components can be used to like run a server or something, right? So like there is still like
I guess so. That's true.
Kinda. I just throw mine in the trash.
Okay.
You don't even take it to like electronic recycling with all those rare minerals and components and stuff. Yeah, all right. It's one way to live your life. Fucking garbage man.
Silicon was mined by child slaves in Africa, and Seth's just throwing it in the trash.
I had like the remnants of my old PC in the corner of my room in my apartment for years.
Yeah. Dude.
You know what? And I was like, I should figure out something to do with this. The day I moved, I put it next to all the trash cans and left.
That's like having a cat die and not moving the body. Like that's
it's like
well,
right.
So here's the deal, though. My first PC that I built in 2016 is sitting in our closet, and I haven't used it in 4 years. So I don't get
that. Donut, is it the trash? Is that the good spot for it?
Yeah, it's a spot.
The local compactor.
Yeah, I mean, can't you donate that shit? No, can't you donate that shit to like a school?
Or like actually, I mean, Pedro has a good idea here. He says use it for emulation, man. You could hook it up to like a CRT and
that's true.
Really like get a lot of use out of it for emulation. I mean that is a legitimate thing you could do with that.
I mean, I'm interested. Yeah, I mean, that sounds sick. I would be interested in figuring out how to run like a media server.
That's true.
Like finding a way. Like I don't know how much physical media you guys have. I've been collecting it just because I lose internet quite a bit here, and I never want to like not be able to be entertained just because like I don't have Spectrum or whatever. So I still have all my DVDs, all my Blu-rays, all that shit. So figuring out a way to copy those and then just running like Plex or something.
In
Seems like
college, in my
old hardware.
In my game design program, we actually made like a really cool emulation arcade cabinet. So I don't know who, because it happened the semester before I was there, but there was this empty arcade cabinet, and we got a Raspberry Pi and we put the software on it to emulate old school arcade games, and it was super cool. Like, you could put a ton of arcade games on this and just map it to the controls, and we had like all kinds of stuff, like the classic X-Men in like the arcade and stuff like that, and they worked flawlessly. So stuff like that is really neat. Now, do you have the room for an arcade cabinet? Probably not.
No.
And no one wants to use an arcade cabinet to play real games anyway. It's just like a novelty thing when someone walks in your house, like, oh wow, that's a cool arcade cabinet. You're like, yeah, I never play it.
I'm not gonna move my camera because I don't want you guys to see how messy my office is. But I did buy last summer, 2 summers ago, the Terminator 2 Judgment Day light gun arcade cabinet from 1UP.
That's actually really cool,
and it's fucking sick. And I would love to figure out how to hack it so I could do like Time Crisis, which is what Time Crisis 2 is probably the greatest video game ever.
Pedro says he has an arcade cabinet in a studio in the chat. That's crazy. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I don't know where we would even put it. But to be fair, 2 of us live in here, and we have a bunch of crap.
Pedro's got a dense but impressive game collection set up, and he has like I forget. You have to type it in, Pedro. The arcade. It's one of those arcade cabinets they were selling at like big box stores for a while. You know, like the had like 2 or 3 games on it, and they were like 30%, or not 30%, like 70% of the size of a real one. But then he got like the spacer that you can put it on top of to make it like full size.
Oh, that's like the 1UP one, right? That's like the same as you.
Yeah, that's what it is. The 1UP one. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm working with the light guns. Which, like, I don't want to mess with it just because like it was expensive. Like, I got it, I want to say like for $400, which like is still an incredible amount of money. That's back when I was working like 4 jobs and I just had fuck you money, which was really cool. If you guys ever have the chance, I really recommend getting fuck you money. So I don't really want to mess with it just because it was so expensive. But like I said, like, man, I kind of want to just play like House of the Dead on that too. Like, that's my big problem with 1UP is that like I can't buy like a Marvel cabinet that's like every Marvel game. Like that to me is such a bummer. You know, how it's like 1 or 2 games, and I saw one that was like every Marvel vs. Capcom game except for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That was like its own separate cabinet. I'm like, you guys are fucking assholes. Like, that is such a rude thing to do. Just like, you're already charging $700 for this shit MSRP. Like, just put everything on it, man. Like, what are you doing?
Pedro says he has the X-Men versus Street Fighter one, which, to be fair, that is a really cool grab. The X-Men versus Street Fighter.
It sounds sick as shit. I'm jealous.
The OG crossover. Yeah, cool. That's pretty awesome. But other than spending money, Austin, what else you been up to this week?
Good question. Not a whole lot, to be honest. I haven't had a whole lot of time to game. I think we brought this up last week, but I started getting further into Shining Pearl, or Pokemon remake, and not crazy far in. I'm approaching the 3rd gym now, so I'm heading that way. And by the way, let me just say, totally forgot that the Budew, the little like grass Pokemon that turns into Roselia and then Roserade, forgot that you had to have like the friendship leveled up for that little guy. So
I hate that.
I got like level 30, and this stupid Budew was still a Budew. And I looked it up, and I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it needs to be first in your party, and you need to take him out of the ball, and you need to give him all this stuff. No. I'm not doing that.
That's the same way I feel about Lucario, dude. Like,
yes.
Every time I start a new Pokemon game and I catch Riolu, I'm like, oh Jesus, I have to have this guy in my 6th slot for the next 15 hours and like never let him die. You know?
Yes.
It's like, God.
So I've been playing a little bit of that, a little more Helldivers. Wish I was playing Helldivers with you too, but no one's diving.
We should probably just cancel the podcast and make it a Helldivers stream on a weekly basis, right? Like,
we could do that. I mean,
I'd be okay with that.
I would have been down for that. We got to defend Super Earth for democracy, spread some democracy across these
Let's just do that for like May or something, like just May diving, because like they announced that like mechs are coming soon, like in the next content drop, right? Like the Patriot mech or whatever's coming.
It's even better than that. Have you seen that people are spawning the mechs and vehicles into their games? Because on PC, you can just edit your files and change. So I don't know how exactly people are doing it. I've only read about it. They are changing. So I guess all that stuff is already in the game, and they're changing what the stratagems do to the like. So instead of throwing the laser down or whatever, it spawns the mech, and you can get in and it works perfectly. So I'm sure they're probably going to get busted soon, but still pretty neat that they're able to do that.
That makes sense. Like I said the last time I talked about this game, like it is the same fucking game as the first one. And like there were mechs and I think small vehicle. Like I don't know if there was like the APC in the original. I don't remember spawning that one because like if I can spawn a mech, I'm going to spawn a fucking mech.
Oh yeah.
But no, I mean that game's great, and I want to pilot a mech. It looks like a Destroid or whatever from Macross. It looks awesome.
I just have to say this: no matter how many times like I go into a new level in that game, for some reason to me, like one of the coolest things is like stepping into the hell pod, hearing that like awesome orchestral music, and then like seeing the pod shoot out of the ship. There's just something about that sequence, the way it's animated, the like soundtrack it's got behind it. I mean, I'm going to keep playing that game for a long time, and I'm going to continue to stay amazed by that sequence for some reason.
Now, what level are you guys?
Now? I'm 11, I think.
Okay. And what's your go-to loadout?
I just got the second shotgun, so like the auto shotgun. I've been rolling with that for a little while. And I tried using the anti-material rifle, like the sniper rifle, and that's pretty good. But I think the grenade launcher for a stratagem heavy weapon, like that's the one to like just always have for like the armored guys and the like little what do you call them, like the bug nests or whatever. It's just like the most versatile. So I've been rolling with that, the napalm, fire, eagle, and then always the Gatling sentry has been like my go-to.
Yeah,
it's a good setup. George, what about you? You've been diving
Gatling
lately?
Sentry. I've been diving a lot. Gatling Sentry. I usually do the stalwart machine gun just because I like the clip size with that.
Yeah.
The 380 millimeter barrage.
Dude, that thing's intense.
That is a large area you're dropping.
I've been doing a lot of defense missions lately, just because I kind of like the horde mode nature of that. Like that just feels like a comfortable slice of gaming that I've been doing for the last 15 years. So I find those really fun. And so when I do those, usually it's like the minefield. But I don't know. I've been getting pretty good at like actually tossing the grenades. So I've been doing a lot of precision strikes as well. So
nice.
Not that those are
level are you,
anything
George?
too special. Seth, what? 10 or 12? Okay. I've been like so bad. Like I don't follow like the orders or whatever to like level up quicker. I honestly like.
Yeah.
I just play rounds and don't really pay attention to that. But I finally started spending my requisition slips, and I'm like halfway through the premium pass, right? Yeah. Like whatever that one is.
Yeah.
What's your loadout?
I'm like level 19 and a half. I usually go with right now the automatic shotgun, the breaker, like Austin has. I have the submachine gun, not the submachine gun, the like Uzi type.
Yeah,
I
use that too.
That's really helpful for crowd control if you're running.
Yeah.
I always have the cluster bomb on me. Always have the watchdog drone on me, and usually like either the Gatling barrage or the napalm strike is my go-to. And for the support weapon, the autocannon. Always have the autocannon.
Watchdog is so good. Watchdog is fucking amazing.
It's awesome unless you cut yourself open with it. And then it's not. And then I get upset.
I haven't got that yet.
It's really fun. So it's essentially a roaming drone that shoots a laser and cuts down. And it really helps like get the crowd under control while you focus on like the main enemies. It's really good for that. It's like if you're getting chased by like a ton of bugs, it'll take care of almost an entire crowd of like bugs and stuff. Dude, it's pretty nice.
The napalm thing, I just have to say, is so satisfying. Like that's the most satisfying like airdrop thing.
Oh yeah,
to me.
I like the cluster bomb personally, but
yeah,
sure. Cluster bombs. My one like kind of like problem with the game isn't like I don't think it's actually a problem, but like the more I think about it, the more I think it might actually be a problem. Is like especially with some of these bigger stratagems you can call down, is like it's really hard to enjoy the stratagem you call down just because they have such like a big area of effect that like you have to run away and like you do it in such like a panicked manner, where you like try to summon the right stratagem, then you throw it, then like you run away, and there's always bugs or fucking robots chasing you. So like you're not focused on the cool thing you just called down, and you don't always get to enjoy it the way you would in a game that had more set PC design.
Well, especially when you're dropping a 308 millimeter barrage.
That one is
absurd. They shouldn't have pissed me off that much. The first time have pissed me off that much. I wouldn't.
The first time I threw that down, I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was just going to be like, just like a massive explosion. I was not expecting it to go from like one side of the map to the other side of the map. Yeah, that's a large area.
It's pretty fun.
No, dude,
did you guys see Did you guys see the article that was like this game basically has like a dungeon master who will like tweak things on the fly? This guy named Joel.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a job.
Cool.
Yeah. And so that seems like a sick job, but also like I'm convinced that that's the reason why we're getting the mech in the next drop is because like we technically lost the advance against the robots or whatever. And it's just like, oh boy, we need some bigger guns. So like I'm kind of getting into the kayfabe a little bit of Helldivers, like just thinking about it as like an actual like living, breathing thing. And like that coupled against like the report from Warner Brothers saying like they're gonna shy away from big AAA games and only make like live service, like that's gonna be their focus. Not that live service games can't be AAA. Like I think Destiny is one of the better AAA games and also one of the best live service games of the last 10 years. So like I'm not saying that they won't be able to make it work. But like they sold 22 million copies of Hogwarts Legacy, and then the game that was supposed to be their live service game, Suicide Squad, kind of seems a little DOA. So like I feel like they took the wrong lessons away from that. But like this seems like a live service game that's working and like doesn't feel gross in a way that doesn't. And I think that's like barely a live service game, yeah. But like that's the thing is like people don't want to play a game that makes them feel gross.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I've spent a lot of money on Helldivers just because I'm like, I feel good about the game. I feel like they're respecting me as a player.
Yeah.
So, and I paid $40 for the game, which I feel like I came in at a steal. So I was more inclined to buy credits and spend them in the game. I've been buying all kinds of armor sets and stuff like that just because I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool. I want that. So I'll buy it, and they rotate them every 2 days or every day and a half or something like that. So they're constantly throwing in new stuff. So I'm all about it, man. I think Helldivers is great.
I bought the premium pass, and then I also bought a few armor sets. I bought one. You probably bought a 2 set that looks kind of like the what are the stormtroopers called when they're on Hoth, like the white
snowtroopers.
Yes,
I have that.
It looks like exactly like a snowtrooper outfit, like the helmet and body piece. I snagged that in a heartbeat. I've been rocking with that.
I bought the airman one or whatever. That one looks fucking sick. Where it has like the Navy pilot, like the air mask or whatever going up.
Oh
yeah.
That's fucking sick.
I got the outfit with the helmet. It looks like a scout trooper for the bikes on Star Wars. That one I'm a big fan of. And it also gives you explosion resistance. So when your boys drop a bomb or throw a grenade in an uncomfortable spot, it doesn't kill you immediately. Just gives it a lot of damage. So that's helpful. But did you guys see the hack where for a little while in the game you could break it and throw unlimited stratagems down, like as many as you wanted?
No.
So when you get to level 20, there's a homing laser that will like fire from the ship. It's called an orbital laser, and it'll follow enemies and just like destroy them. And there's these amazing videos of these guys on the map just throwing like 100 of them. And there's just lasers in every direction around, just like killing everything on the map. And the guy's just standing there like this, like, I am a god. It's really funny.
Just glassing the planet. Yeah,
it's like really funny, dude. Those videos are amazing. What's really funny is that this game is completely broken in a lot of ways, and people are like breaking it open and cheating and stuff. And the community is so happy and they love the game so much that no one's really complaining about it. Now, if it was a PvP game, that would be an issue. But because it's us versus the bugs, I think everyone's like, Need every hand we get out
What
here.
are you supposed to do?
We need to spread some democracy.
Those people are ruining the integrity of health. Shut the fuck up, nerd. Like, come on, that's not a thing. Like,
I love.
Oh no, like it should be more fair. Shut up. Like,
I love
no,
too that they came
fun.
out and they were like, "We're never touching PvP."
Yeah, I know. I love that
I'm
too.
so glad that they made that statement. It's very nice.
Shutting it down.
Oh, that would be interesting if like for a week there was PvP. Like if there's like some Civil War type thing going on. Because I mean, like you do that, there is like dissension in the game, right? Like when you go to a planet and you have to like destroy like the pirate broadcaster or whatever.
That's true,
right? Like, isn't that technically like the bugs didn't build that fucking radio tower? You know, like isn't that technically like you stamping out rebels or whatever in Super Earth, Super Democracy?
I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right though. I don't want to play that.
Yeah. But Austin, anything else you've been playing?
No, that's it.
Georgie, what about you? Caress me with your voice.
I played and beat the original Final Fantasy 1. I finally beat Final Fantasy 16, one of the greatest games I've ever played. So in love with it.
Absolutely.
I think I was texting Seth about the ending, right? Was I texting you about like what happened to Clive? And then I've also like there was a coworker of mine who like I don't really talk to because he's on the video team, and like usually like my company, it's like, oh, I write scripts and just kind of hand them off to the art director, and then they make the storyboards. Like I'm trying to be more involved in the creative process at my job, and part of that has just been like me and the video editor talking about Final Fantasy fucking nonstop.
Yeah.
So I went back, I started and beat the original Final Fantasy. That game is incredible. That game is not Final Fantasy. That game is Dungeons and Dragons. Like it is. It seems very different. And I'm 10 or 15 hours now into Final Fantasy 2. That game's amazing. I really didn't like it at first just because of the changes to leveling, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And like, I don't know, I hate to sound like someone who just came to this realization, but I'm like, wow, they like totally fucking, like Skyrim totally ripped off this game. Like just the idea of like using a skill and like you only level up the skills you use. Like it's like imagine like in Pokemon you only leveled up the moveset you used, you know? It's like, oh, Charizard, he is a level 1 Scratch, but like a level 10 Ember or whatever. That's bad for Charizard. Level 10 Flamethrower, whatever. But like there's just something like I'm hooked in this game, and this game is basically Star Wars, right? Like it's Hidden Fortress. It's like there's a rebellion, there's an evil empire. They just built this thing called the Dreadnought, which is a giant airship that is just extremely powerful. And it's up to you to save the princess who's just kidnapped on the Dreadnought 10 hours in and you know, do this rebellion to fight against the evil empire. And I'm fucking hooked. Like, it's amazing how little story there was in the first game, where it really was like you dealing with themes and abstract concepts about the earth failing and like, oh, the seas are raging, the wind died, like the land is dying, you know, it's like this climate catastrophe because of the 4 fiends that came back. And I actually thought that like the way they did things, also spoilers for the original Final Fantasy, sorry, the way they like layered the final boss being someone you dealt with multiple times, but like in different forms, like throughout the game, I thought that was genius. Like,
yeah,
I wasn't expecting that boss to come back and be the final boss at the end, and then to have time travel be such a big part of it. I've also gone back and looked at footage from like the original NES release of Final Fantasy, and boy howdy am I glad they cleaned that shit up for Pixel Remaster. That is not a game I want to look at, and I'm such a big preservationist. Like, I'm still pissed that Lucas made it so Han didn't shoot first. But like, man, like what if you'd made something old and shitty palatable and awesome for modern audiences? I think the Pixel Remaster's knocked it out of the park. I'm so excited to hopefully beat Final Fantasy 2 this weekend and then move into Final Fantasy 3, which I think is like the last of like the first phase of Final Fantasy. And like I played a bunch of Final Fantasy 3. I talked about the PSP version on this show a bunch. And then I'm excited to move into 4 after that, when it like actually becomes like way more story driven. But I'm excited by the story in this. I'm also, respectfully to you guys, I'm going to stop naming the characters after my friends, just because I was bringing up Final Fantasy 2 and they're like, oh, what'd you think of this character? I'm like, I don't know who that is. Do you mean Fabio? Like, yeah, Fabio. Oh yeah, haven't met him yet. He was kidnapped by the Empire after we left that town.
At some point that changes though, right? Like, is it in 4 where you can no longer, like, don't they become their own characters at some point and not like player names?
It's like Cecil in 4, right? Yeah.
So,
I don't.
But the first one's perfect for naming people.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it still gives you the option every time you recruit a character. It's been years since I've played 4, but I think it still gives you the option every time you recruit a character to change the name, but it has their name filled in already.
I see.
So I'm not positive.
Pedro says skip
think
5. I liked what I played of 5 back in the day.
You
That's
guys
the
are
only one
fucking
I've beaten.
nutty.
That's the only one I've beaten. I love 5.
Yeah, I played 5 on PS3. That was like one of the first PS1 classics I bought. I never beat it, but I got like 30 hours into it and enjoyed it.
I played it on PSP. Also, all due respect to Coach, like he said he didn't want to play it with any of the like
dude,
amplifiers on, like any of the boosts on. I completely disagree. Like I played it with 4X Gil, 4X Experience, and like I'm not here to have a 1988 RPG experience. I'm here to like do a buffet of Final Fantasy. I'm here to do a tour of Final Fantasy. And so it's the same reason, like to me it's like listening to an audio book versus like taking a class talking about a book. Like I'm not trying to make this a big experience. I'm just trying to immerse myself into Final Fantasy as a franchise, and I'm absolutely loving it. Also, I don't think there's any shame 20 years later to making modern conveniences, especially when the game was designed to be a fucking time sink, you know?
So at what point then in the franchise are you going to stop using the multiplier? Have you thought about this?
Probably 7. Like probably when it makes the jump to 3D.
Technically, I mean, I know you can totally destroy 7, like with the unlimited limit break thing, but I don't think from 7 and onward they have like the EXP and Gil boost. I think that was just a pixel remaster thing.
Yeah.
Nope, they sure do. I don't think it's 4X the way it is, but like you can. I remember when I was playing 8 for the first time during COVID. Like I think even before I was on the show, I just wanted to check it out. Like I downloaded all the 3D remakes. Just to be like, oh, maybe this one. I loved what I played of Final Fantasy VIII just because it felt like such a 90s thing where like you're basically in the UN. And, you know, it's just like, oh, we got to go stop these wars before they happen. Like that felt like such a 90s concept of like a global government and then all these different countries fearing, you know, super control of some outside entity or whatever. Like I thought that was like politically really interesting, especially from Japan, who was going through so much weird shit in the 90s. But there was like, you know, you can make things go faster and whatnot on that. I don't know if it's like the same XP 4X and Gil 4X boost, but you could modify
honest,
things for sure.
I'm surprised, George, that you didn't buy into the hype and just go ahead and complete 7 so you could jump into the remake and stuff. Or like you're really going in and trying to start from the beginning and see how this franchise evolved, which I think is pretty neat. It's a good move.
I'm having a blast.
Yeah,
that's the only game I've been playing besides Helldivers. One thing I want to shout out really fast too. I've been reading a lot of comics lately. The She-Hulk comic from 2022, really fun, really playful. They made me like a character named Jack of Hearts, who I always fucking hated in my youth. So that's a really impressive comic. There's a couple lines that make me like genuinely laugh out loud, and then Aaliyah, my girlfriend, was like, "Why are you laughing?" And then I explained the joke, and then she was laughing. So She-Hulk, really, really good comic from 2022, and they just started a new volume. I think they're on issue 4 or 5 right now. So check out She-Hulk. Fun stuff.
Nice.
Pedro says 8 makes it a sin to level grind, and there's a theory that Squall dies halfway through. That is correct. So Final Fantasy VIII is like a redheaded stepchild of the Final Fantasy games, because I mean that might be a little mean to say that might be a little extreme, but it's a game that a lot of people loved at first, but looking back on it has not aged well because they made a ton of changes to the combat system. So, for instance, you can max out your character stats in the first chapter of the game by simply playing the card game, getting the rewards, and junctioning them into your abilities. And also, the enemies scale to your level in Final Fantasy VIII. So there's no sense in even like fighting any random enemies or growing stronger because they just get stronger with you. And also, the story is so bonkers and out of control that yes, they made that the fans have a large theory that the main character dies halfway through just to make the story make sense. So Final Fantasy VIII's a rough one. Now I haven't ever beaten Final Fantasy VIII. I got pretty far into 9 with me and Pedro. We were doing this thing when we lived together. We were trying to play a game, RPGs together. So like me and him beat Chrono Cross, and then we were going through Final Fantasy 9, and I just wasn't attached to anything in that game. I know people say Final Fantasy 9 is the best of the PS1 RPGs, and mechanically, it's hard for me to disagree. And graphically, for sure, it's hard to disagree with that. But the story just was not connecting to me, and the characters were not connecting to me, and I just fell off of it.
Did you guys ever watch Lost?
No,
yeah.
I never did.
Okay, Seth, you'll appreciate this. Remember Desmond, how he had like that one book he was saving because he wanted to be the last book he read before he died?
Vaguely,
Like
I just vaguely remember that.
The one Charles Dickens book he was saving that he never read. Well, that's what my friend Colin says about Final Fantasy IX, is that like he wants that to be like the last platinum he ever gets, and he knows that like if he doesn't have anything to platinum, he's just gonna play Final Fantasy IX because that is his, like he said, I think he said it's his favorite game of all time, if not his favorite Final Fantasy game.
Yeah,
and he's like, yeah, honestly, the second I platinum that, I might just like sell my PlayStation because like I can't imagine like more
playing anything else.
So, like he's constantly saving it and like teasing like maybe it's time to start.
There is famously a weapon, like a really strong weapon in Final Fantasy 9 that is at the end of the game in a chest that only appears if you beat the game like within 15 hours or something like that. It's almost impossible to find.
Jeez.
You would never get there in a normal playthrough. So like it was only when people started like rushing through the game that they found this chest. And I'm like, yeah, that's stupid. There's a couple weapons in Final Fantasy, like hidden weapons, that are just really dumb. In 12, there's a weapon that would only spawn if you didn't open select chests, and they gave you no warning on these chests throughout the game. It was at the end. It was like very powerful too. Pedro, the sword was called God Save the Queen.
How do you feel about this with Final Fantasy 16, where it's like you can forge the mythic sword Gottermerdang or whatever it's called? Yeah, something like that. And then you can only form the most powerful version of it. I think it's called the ultimate weapon on your second playthrough during Final Fantasy mode when you're playing the hardest playthrough. And I think that's kind of cool, right? To like have something that like you need to carry through multiple playthroughs. But at the same time, I'm like, kind of just like give me the most powerful shit. Like, what's the point of me getting this weapon right before the final mission on my second playthrough? Like what's the value in that? Like, I don't even get to enjoy it throughout the game.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it because I wanted to get the most powerful sword in the game, like on my first playthrough, and I did not want to play through it again. So I was like, all right, well,
yeah, I'm
just not gonna get that then. But I mean, it's
you got the most powerful sword on your first playthrough. You just haven't gotten it on your second playthrough.
It's interesting because it doesn't look any different when you upgrade it. It's the same sword, it's just stronger.
Oh, also I had that shit, and then I played the DLC. The DLC was fine. Actually, the final boss fight was really interesting. The way it was kind of like
yeah, I've heard the fight was really.
I'm not gonna spoil who you were fighting, but like the area you were fighting in kept getting smaller, so it was kind of like a timed boss fight at the end, which I thought was like pretty fun and pretty interesting.
I've heard it was ripped straight from 14.
I found a random weapon in there that's like more powerful than the most powerful thing from the base game, and I'm like, well, maybe that was bad design. I don't know. So I used that when I fought Ultima the first time.
I can't wait to go back to 16 when both DLCs come out. That's my plan. I'm just gonna go back to 16 and just have a second meal at the table.
Yeah,
you know? And
that's a good idea.
I'm really excited for that.
Well, I remember the reason I like stopped playing Final Fantasy VIII is like I honestly thought it was like too confusing and like a little too complex of a game, just because I don't normally play games like that. Where it's like the same thing with Final Fantasy VII, and like I don't mean to sound like a bitch when I say this. I mean to sound like a baby, but like the materia I thought was just like kind of confusing. And then when you have like all the extra ways to enhance your powers in 8 with, like you said, like the card game and getting like all that extra shit and like how you can like modify summons and modify spells, like that to me just wasn't. I don't know if it's because the game was from 1999 and just like not the most clearly laid out, because I was playing like the PS1 classic version of it. I just didn't think it was like the most clear.
Yeah,
and
they
like
dumped
all
like
the
a
guys
15
are written by
minute.
people who.
They dumped like a 15-minute tutorial on you at the very beginning of Final Fantasy VIII, and it ruins the whole pacing of the game. It's fucking
and everyone who's written the guide has like played that game 500 times, and so it's like, oh, you actually like just don't know how to talk to a normal person about this, you know?
Yeah, the materia system in 7 is actually my favorite magic system in a Final Fantasy game because I like how it affects your stats. You can't just slot the materia in your weapons and armor and just do it without thinking about it. Like you have to look and be like, okay, if I slot this magic in here, it takes my attack down by like 20 points. So I got to make sure that this is how I want to build this character. I like that because yeah, like I said, you can't just slot a whole bunch of spells on Cloud and expect it to work like that. It doesn't. So I didn't know that when I was a kid, and I still beat Final Fantasy 7. So I think it's pretty forgiving. I think you can just kind of ignore it if you really wanted to. But
I just wanted to say quickly, going back to the pixel remasters for a second. First off, I need to go back and do what you're doing, George, because I got like halfway through 2 and then I fell off. Because I think that was right when we were in England. I was playing them, and then we got back, and then Alan Wake 2 came out. So I got completely sidetracked.
I'm jealous that you got them on Switch. Like I'm playing them on PlayStation because I'm a fucking maniac for trophies. Man, it seems like the perfect like in bed game.
They are, but I was just gonna say like the thing that I was not expecting when I bought the Pixel remasters was the sheer like quality of the soundtracks, the remastered soundtracks.
Oh,
they are.
It's so good.
Really freaking good. Like some of the best like orchestral soundtracks I've heard in a long time.
You do that, and then I actually switch between that and the original soundtrack all the time, just because like I love like the MIDI tunes. And there's a filter too on the PlayStation version. I'm not sure if it's on the Switch. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Where you could turn it on, and it just looks like you're playing on a CRT. Like everything is just like a little fuzzy and like a little rounded, like it's beveled, like the part of the screen. And like I constantly am switching back and forth between those things. Where like these games, it's gonna sound silly. These games make me feel like a kid again. Like it makes me feel like playing a game before I like knew anything about games, but like I just have like the actual brain power to figure out what to do and not get frustrated the way I would have back then. So I find myself constantly bouncing back and forth between like the pixel remaster and then like the CRT filter and then the original soundtrack and then you're right, Austin, like the absolutely gorgeous orchestra that is over it. And I'm still humming like the battle theme, you know, from Final Fantasy 2. When was the last time someone did that?
I'm pretty sure, I mean, I don't want to misspeak, but I'm pretty sure like everything is like a real orchestra like doing it. It does not sound like MIDI music at all. It sounds like completely recreated. And yeah, that battle theme, the battle themes in particular, both in 1 and 2, remastered that orchestra style. Holy shit. So good.
Well, that and just the amount of times I just turn on my PlayStation and just like hover over to those games and just let like the arpeggio play, like the Final Fantasy like harp shit or whatever. And like even my girlfriend didn't complain about me like leaving it on for 25 minutes when I like started it, and then she's like, "Oh, can you help with this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And like it was just on in the background forever, and like I was happy, and she wasn't thrilled, but she wasn't mad, so I'll take it. I don't know. Those games are just great. I'm excited for it to get more Final Fantasy as we know it.
Yeah, this is super cool. I'm glad you guys are going through this. I've never done it. I've never played from the beginning. I've played all of them separately, but I've never beaten all of them. So, but yeah, I think
Pixel Remasters makes it easy to skim.
Yeah,
So when you guys get to 4, have you thought about what version of 4 you're going to play? Because there's the 3D version of 4 that I prefer personally to the Pixel version. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I would roll with like just continue on with the Pixel remasters, to be honest with you.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I want to do, but like now that I know I like Final Fantasy, at least so far, and the games apparently only get better, so I don't know why I wouldn't like it going forward. Now, like I'm way more likely to bust that because I actually have Final Fantasy 4 on DS. So like now, like once I go through it on the Pixel remaster, like that might just be like a summer game or like a travel game for me. You know, just get like an RD4 chip and RD3. I don't know what it was on DS. Whatever I
think it was R4.
Was. But just do that R4 and just burn through that because like I really like the PSP version of 3 to the point where I want to beat 3 remaster, remember where I was in PSP, and then go back and finish the game on PSP.
That's awesome. I'm really happy for you guys. I think I might buy them on PC because Steam Link works so good.
Yeah.
And I don't like how. So I have Final Fantasy IV on my phone that I was playing for a minute. It does not have controller support, which is so annoying on the Android version. I hate that, dude. So I'm gonna force it and get it on PC, and then I'll Steam Link it to my PC, because Steam Link is like phenomenal. I don't know how they get that so good.
I just get the PC versions because I don't know. I know that the Pixel remasters had a lot of problems when they first came out. Like, people had issues with the different font, and I could be wrong, but I don't think the remastered music was in the initial release. I think that was like when they put it on PS4 and Switch, although I could be wrong. But like, I think, at least from what I've played, and I mean, I never played the originals, so I guess I can't really say, but from what I've played, like, they're an excellent way to play through the first 6 games.
If anybody is interested, they are on sale right now for 22% off on Steam. So
nice.
Jump on that.
I grabbed the collection on PSN for $60, which I was able to justify. I'm like, okay, that's $10 a game, because I think normally it's like $11.99 for the first 2, and then $15.99 to $17.99 for 3, 4, and 5 and 6. Yep. Seth, Austin, I want to open this up to you guys just because you follow Japanese publishers more than I do. So this seems like I think it's successful, right? Like, I feel like Square is kind of entering like an okay period, the way we were texting earlier talking about Capcom just like really turning things around. And it feels like Square kind of shedding some of its Western developers, which like did keep it afloat 10 years ago, like as a transition into HD consoles happened. Mm-hmm. But like now might not be that necessary. I gotta ask, guys, Chrono Trigger or Pixel Remaster, how likely is that to happen?
That is 100% gonna happen soon. And I feel it deep in my balls, dude. I know it's coming.
Dude,
I know it is.
It is so weird to me that Chrono Cross got the remaster first before Chrono Trigger.
They are 100%. I don't think they're remastering Chrono Trigger. I think they're going to remake it. I think they're going to give it like what was it, Link's Awakening that got or Link's. Yeah. I think they're going to give it that kind of treatment.
Okay.
I think they're going to give it like a, because so Chrono Trigger has phenomenal art by Akira Toriyama, the author of Dragon Ball. Yeah. And I think that Square is waiting for that to be like a big release. They're going to wait and give that a lot of treatment and a lot of love. Because Chrono Trigger is a legendary game.
And they've remastered all like the Mana games too, right? At this point.
Yeah.
Like Secret of Mana, Life of Mana. I don't know what the games are called besides Secret of Mana. But I feel like I've seen a whole bunch of like Mana remakes on PlayStation.
Yeah, I that game is 100% coming, and I don't know when. I don't know, but they're definitely planning and working on that. And I think it's going to be either like I said, like a complete remake of some portion, or they're going to give it like the Octopath Traveler treatment, and they're going to give it some love like that, because dude, Star Ocean 2 remake, that looks fucking phenomenal, and they did a wonderful job. And the Suikoden remakes that are coming out look just as good. So I think that's a really good way to tackle these old school RPGs. But also, dude, Chrono Trigger holds up very well. Like you guys, when you get past Final Fantasy VI, should take a detour to Chrono Trigger at some point, because it does hold up very well. It's widely considered the greatest JRPG of all time. So
yeah,
I have the DS version. Yeah,
the best version.
The best one. Yep. I tried the PS1 version years ago. Mm-hmm. Not the way to play that game. Got it
for $25 at GameStop in 2016.
Oh wow! Yeah. Wow,
that's pretty good even at that time frame.
The classic version of Final Fantasy IV. The PS1 version of Chrono Trigger came with Final Fantasy IV.
Oh no, sorry, I said the DS version.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That I grabbed.
That's also a really good grab for that price. Wow.
Yeah, that game's really expensive.
I knew nothing about JRPGs, but grabbed it because I just heard so much about it, and that seemed like the kind of game that would get more expensive, and I was right. So.
All right. As for me, I've only been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth this past week, and I am so in love with this game. It's hands down one of the greatest games I've ever played in my life so far. And I'm not that far into it. I'm just taking my time, exploring everything, just seeing just all the sights and having a blast with these characters. They have taken all the great things from Final Fantasy VII Remake and expanded upon them and fixed some of the issues. Like for instance, one of the issues in Final Fantasy VII Remake that was frustrating was when there was a flying enemy. Cloud didn't have a really good way to get up there and attack flying enemies. Now they've made it so that if you dodge and just hold in the attack button, he starts throwing beam saber attacks at flying enemies,
nice.
Which makes sense in the lore of the game because he has that ability in his arsenal to throw like beams out of his swords. So that makes sense, and that was a really cool addition. They've also added the synergy system where two characters can attack at once, and they do like this massive damage ability, almost like a limit break with two characters. Just completely ruins an enemy. But it's a lot of work and a lot of payoff to get there because you have to like set it up right. You have to know how you're setting it up. Then there's like smaller synergy abilities. Like if you're playing as Aerith and you're guarding, you can have Barret or Cloud come and jump in front of an attack for her and tank that damage. So that's pretty cool. And like I said, the gameplay is so good, man. What I will say is that it seems to be a decent amount more challenging than Remake was. Like there's a lot of battles that I'm barely skimming by in this game. Like I'm walking out sweating. I'm out of potions, out of Phoenix Downs. Aerith has died 14 times and I just kept reviving her. Like I am struggling through here, but I'm playing it on normal difficulty and I'm having a blast. I'm going after everything I possibly can.
So the
Pedro,
world is
on dynamic. No, I'm not on dynamic, Pedro. I'm on just normal.
For like what is that? I guess
they added a dynamic difficulty into the game, so you can select easy, normal, or dynamic. Which in dynamic adjusts the difficulty of the game based on how good you're doing.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting. You don't see a whole lot of games doing that.
I feel like that was sort of like a level scaling thing. Like I don't want to be going up against enemies I should be crushing, and then just all of a sudden like hanging in there. So that's and like I don't know. I just feel like dynamic wasn't something I was interested in. I wanted to be able to outgrow the enemies.
So the world is like pretty expansive in this one, right? Like the actual like map and like things you can go do compared to the first game.
Yes, it's insane, dude. Like the way they expanded upon what the Final Fantasy VII world was is unbelievable. I don't know how they came up with this. I mean, I guess I've always said I don't have like artistic and design chops in my head, but they crafted this world and there's so much verticality in it, and you can tell it's all handcrafted because it's dense and there's details everywhere you look. You can just look off in the distance and see like, Bill's Chocobo farm or Calm or, out in the distance, Junon with their guns sticking out. And I'm like, dude, this is like insane. I'm playing through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and I'm like actually in disbelief and in awe that Square pulled this off. I didn't think they had it in them to do anything like this. This is an open world design that takes the best from all open world designs and combines them into probably the best open world design I've ever seen. I am in absolute shock about how good the open world is in this game. The one thing I do wish happened more was I wish there was more interesting things to actually do in the open world, because as it stands now, you're basically going around and doing like basic open world tasks, like eliminating these fiends in specific ways, unlocking the towers so that they unlock more things on the map and stuff like that. And, I'm doing that because I want to get stronger, but they're not really riveting. The side quests, I think, are much better than the first game. There's not as many of them so far, but they're more meaningful. And what they've done is the Final Fantasy VII Remake was very Cloud and heavy, and you went through it mostly from Cloud's point of view, and it didn't really pay attention to the side characters much unless the story called for them. Well, in Rebirth, they've added like a social link type system with the characters and the side characters. And what's going on here is when you go do a side quest, each side quest in each area is directed towards one of the side characters. So like when you're going to do a mission to blow something up, you might bring Barrett with you. And while you're doing this, Cloud and Barrett are going to conversate and talk naturally through the quest and create like a deeper bond. And you're going to learn more about Barrett and how he feels and what he wants. There's no like, like conversation options. Like the gameplay doesn't stop and zooms in on Barrett's face and you select it. But Cloud and Barrett go through and they'll have this natural conversation. And then the next side quest might be directed towards like Aerith or Tifa or Red 13. And that is really, really cool. So the side quests are very, very riveting, and I'm a big fan of them. So yeah, I'm having a blast. It's all I can think about. It's all I want to do. And the game is so beautiful that I'm actually refusing to play it remote play, which would allow me to play it way more, right? But I want to see this game on my OLED. I want to sit there. I want to be dialed in. I don't want to play it on my Steam Deck or my phone at work. I want to sit there and I want to dial in and just see how beautiful this game is. So I am just completely enamored with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I'm back in, baby. Final Fantasy back in. I want to buy everything. I bought the anniversary edition card set the other day in the middle of Alpha Nerds. Me and Pedro were talking about Final Fantasy, and I saw it. And I'm like, buy that. I need that right now. Do not play the game.
Do not play the game. Is there an Insomnia cookies near you? You could get the Final Fantasy VII cookies. I
know. I saw them. I was like, damn. I really wish I could buy them, but
there was one in Athens. I don't know if there still is, but I should go there and send you some cookies.
You're gonna have to go and get enough. You're gonna have to go and get enough cookies for all of us, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I really want to play the remake and Rebirth. I know I've got to get through like the original and Crisis Core.
Yeah. And 7 keeps lying, or not 7, Square keeps lying. They keep telling people they don't need to play the previous games in the series to play the new ones. And I'm like, that is a straight bold-faced lie. You have to play them.
Dude, that's like Sam Lake saying, yeah, you don't need to play Alan Wake 1 for Alan Wake 2. No.
I understand they're scared of sales, but there is a direct, like in the first few hours of this game, there is a direct reference to what happens to Aerith in Final Fantasy VII, like the OG, directly. Sephiroth says it, and it's like, if you did not do that, you would have no clue what's happening. And if you don't play Crisis Core, Cloud, like Crisis, like because I went straight from Crisis Core into Rebirth, I was able to see like the 1-for-1 copy that they did, and the reason they did Rebirth last year, and it was because they were doing the beginning of that with the flashback with Cloud as Zack, and it's like, God, this is so good, man. Like, Square is nailing it.
So Bullfrog in the chat, we're like, we always dance around this conversation anytime we talk about it. He said, I thought it was a ground up remake. I haven't played any of them yet. I think at this point, it's been a little while, and this really isn't a spoiler. I think it's safe to just say that it's not, like Seth said. And really, when it comes down to it, you need to play the original.
Yeah.
I heard on a podcast that like both games happened. And so them saying that makes me feel like, all right, it's clearly,
we think both
so far
games happened. There is like a massive curveball in Rebirth, and I have no idea what's going on anymore. I am so curious to see what's going on, because I don't understand how. I have no idea what they're doing. I mean, like it's very interesting. I will say, if you haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII, you need to at least be aware of the events of Final Fantasy VII in a very well capacity. Like, you need to understand what happens in Final Fantasy VII in order to get the most out of Remake, because you're going to walk into Remake and they're going to make references to things, especially with it when Sephiroth shows up. He's going to make references to things, and there's going to be scenes with Aerith, and you're going to be like, that was weird.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that was about. So
Bullfrog said, what a weird way to go about it from Square, to be honest. I don't think it's Square. I think it's Tetsuya Nomura.
Yeah, he's a madman. Also,
That
though,
man's
like
just crazy.
it's also though sort of genius because
It is.
would it be as riveting if we knew exactly what was going on? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows the Final Fantasy VII story. Everyone has seen the scenes or like, you know, heard about it in some way or another, or they would be able to play the original and know what happens. And now we're in a situation where like we kind of know what happens, but also we don't. And I'm just really interested, man. I think especially because you could play through Final Fantasy VII with the boosters on. I think it's worth it. And it's also a classic game that you should add to your repertoire.
I need to go back to it, man. Earlier in the show, you were asking George about jumping straight into 7 or continuing the pixels. And I feel like I want to go back and hit the pixel remasters, but I almost like at some point when I have time would rather just go straight into 7 first and go back and finish the rest.
I don't think you should go back and play every single one before playing Rebirth.
Oh no, I'm just saying that was my goal.
If anyone's listening, if anyone's listening, please just play 7 so you have like the broader context of what's going on in Rebirth. I'm doing it just because it's like when I watch like when a director has like a new movie coming out, like I go back and start from like their earliest shit that I like, and I just like see how they evolve over time.
No,
like that's what I want to do with Final Fantasy, is just see how it changes over time. I'm not saying that that's what you got to do to play Rebirth, and that is exactly what I want to do. But I got time.
No, and I'm not saying what you're doing is right or wrong, George. I'm just saying that because I was trying to do the same thing, was play through basically all of them in order. But I feel like just for the sake
you
of...
fucked up. You started way earlier than I did.
I know. I know. Now you're ahead of me.
Should have been done by now. Yeah.
So Bullfrog said, this is why I've mostly stayed away from Final Fantasy up until now. I mean, this is really... 7's really the only one that's got some continuity, you know, stuff to it. I mean, the rest of them are all separate. So
there's the 13 games, but they're all trash. So you can just kind of skip them.
Yeah,
you kind of just move on. Like looking back,
I'm so excited to get to 13 because I know how much of a mess it is. And like I played 5 or 6 hours. I did like a straight up trade in 2009 with someone where I traded them Uncharted Drake's Fortune for Final Fantasy 13.
Okay, the original. I think it's a good trade. Yeah, I think it's a good trade.
I think
Uncharted one's
came out on top.
Not that great, so.
No, perfectly fine. What a fine third-person shooter game that was. And I played like 5 or 6 hours of it. Like when I say I've never played a Final Fantasy, I've never beaten a Final Fantasy game except for 5. That's the only one I've ever beaten, and I still don't really know how or why that one. I was very drunk when I lived in Europe and had my PSP and had very few games. It was that or Burnout Legends and the Siphon Filter games, pretty much.
Burnout Legends is good.
Burnout Legends is fucking dope. We gotta have a Burnout Legends podcast. We can do it. We can make it work. We can stretch it to an hour. But like, I mean, I'm just kind of interested to see like every time this series stumbled, and like I played so much of 15. I think I was almost done with 15, and then I just stopped playing, and now I have no idea what the fuck's going on. So I'm not gonna go back. Like I'm gonna start that game over again. And I know. But I'm gonna do it because I want to. I want to do the series from start to finish.
I still think 15 overall is a good game. It just has a lot of issues, but
it's so weird.
The entire cut continent that Seth loves to bring up.
Yeah,
I mean I'm not gonna go into it again, but that game could have been phenomenal. It's so weird because the dark ages of Final Fantasy lasted so long, right? Like. They had a really, really hard time transitioning into the HD era at Square. Like there was some internal conflicts happening at Square. They really wanted to open up to the Western audience. They thought that they had to cater to the Western audience, which they were confused because the reason the Western audience loved the games was because they were Japanese. And it's like they've done so much right in these last few years. It's like, I know you guys don't watch MMA, but like there's a famous quote after Conor McGregor beat Nate Diaz where he's like, "Surprise, surprise, the king is back." And that's how I feel with Square Enix. Like it really does feel like they're back on track. They're back on the right foot, and they're making games that are of like insane quality. One thing you cannot dispute about Final Fantasy 13 though is the quality of that game.
It's
Like
gorgeous.
the actual like visual quality. It holds up so well even today. And I do not understand how they got that to run on a PlayStation 3. It does not make sense.
It was 2009?
Like insane.
Right, like 15 years ago. Yeah.
When you play that game, it looks like a modern game still. It looks phenomenal. And it's like, wow, what had happened here? Who
just the way Lightning's sash like moves when she runs, it's just like, wow, that looks really fucking good. Like that looks like how it would look today. It's the details are so good.
Yeah. So anyway, that's enough Final Fantasy talk this week. But since we're talking about playing old games, let's talk about this Nintendo Switch Yuzu lawsuit going on. So, gentlemen, this week, Yuzu got sued from Nintendo, and they have to completely close all operations, take the emulator down, and I wanted to know what you guys thought of this, because my opening thoughts are, if they hadn't gotten greedy, they would have been fine. But also, I can understand wanting to get paid for your work. The thing that happened was Yuzu entered a Patreon for updates and stuff, and they started making money off of Nintendo's software. So, and now I do want to open up that straight emulation. It's not illegal to emulate things. It is illegal to acquire things illegally. So, it is a little sad to me, because I have I don't remember if I still have it on my Steam Deck or not, the Yuzu emulator, and it worked phenomenal. You were able to play Nintendo Switch games at a higher frame rate, higher resolution. I played Tears of the Kingdom last year at 60 frames a second on the Steam Deck, and it was pretty awesome. So, what do you guys think about this lawsuit?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and the other thing to point out too, by the way, is the same team made the Citra 3DS emulator, and that as well has been completely eradicated. So,
Right about that.
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if this is true, but I saw a tweet going around claiming that, I don't know if the name of the company is Yuzu, whatever the company's name is, alleging essentially that the reason they settled was because kind of in the back end they were like making like something to do with like the ROMs or something, and they were like getting them out there. And I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. I saw that, and I saw that they were keeping tabs on like everyone they distributed everything to.
Yeah.
So like the idea is that like part of the reason they settled was like Nintendo, like they had to turn it over. Like they settled, so they didn't go to court. So
didn't go to discovery. Yeah.
However, there's no reason to believe that as part of the settlement they didn't turn over like their servers, right? Like their listservs for who they were distributing shit to.
Right.
And the fact that they started distributing ROMs is the problem. Austin, finish your thought, and then I have like a broader soapbox to complain about.
So, I don't know. It's always an interesting conversation when you're talking about emulation or piracy, and they go hand in hand. To be honest, like you said, Seth. I mean, the act of emulating, there's nothing illegal about it. What it really comes down to is people using that emulator to play games they don't own, or in this case, what Nintendo argued and successfully got away with, which I think is a rightful argument, is people playing games on this emulator that were not even released yet, which was the case with Tears of the Kingdom. And Nintendo made a comment claiming, gosh, I forget what the number is, but it was like several million people apparently like downloaded and played Tears of the Kingdom before it released.
Holy shit.
And which I'm sure is true, because that was going around. I mean, that was a huge thing right before Tears of the Kingdom came out last year. Was the game had like leaked in full somehow, and people were playing it and were getting through it, and leaks were going around on Twitter. And I mean, I saw plenty of gameplay videos on my feed like before the game was even out. But the point being, I think that's a valid argument from Nintendo's side. It's just I never know how to feel, because like something, I don't know. I guess if I were to like point at one exact portion of this news story, them like taking down the 3DS emulator, I have kind of a problem with, because none of those games can be purchased anymore. The 3DS eShop is closed. Nintendo doesn't sell 3DS games anymore. They were never going to make money from any 3DS games if they're worried about quote unquote piracy.
But they were gonna argue about like potential futures, right? Like
which is true.
Like,
I mean, look at Luigi's Mansion. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
they're so smart, so fucking smart. Okay.
I don't know. I'm always so conflicted. I really don't know that I have a full, is this a good or a bad thing type opinion. But I think at the end of the day, I'm disappointed that like the Yuzu emulator was completely, it seems like I said, eradicated. I mean, I know that people will still have it out there. It'll still get shared around, but I mean, game preservation is important, and that is a part of it. It's just how do you balance that with the moral legal side of things? I don't know. I get both sides in a way, and I never know how to feel.
It's also worth noting that Yuzu was open source, so anybody could have downloaded it and worked on it.
Right. And I'm sure work will continue. People will continue doing it on their own.
My bigger problem with all this is like, I'm a little older than you, Austin. Seth, I can never remember how old you are. I'm 33, 34 in July. You're 30? Okay. When I was a kid in the 90s, the worst thing you could call someone was a sellout. You know, like the worst thing you could possibly do is like go commercial and like care more about the monetization of your art than your...
Oh, did we just lose George?
He's down!
George is frozen. The Nintendo boys got him.
Damn, right on top of his soapbox.
That's crazy.
Just continued to interrupt you earlier, it just would have never happened.
George is frozen. I think Miyamoto came and assassinated George in the middle of that. Yeah, he's gone. Okay.
Miyamoto got him.
Seth, what do you think about it? Oh, no, never mind. Never mind. George, there he is.
I could still see me and I could still move. I'm sorry about that, guys. But the worst thing you could be was a sellout. The worst thing you could do is like care more about making money off your art than making your art. And like I only bring that up because I was watching hockey the other day and the Bruins scored a goal, which has been rare the past couple of games until last night when again, Pedro, they waxed the fucking Leafs. So get fucked, my guy. They're second in the Atlantic Conference East, so like I don't want to hear it. But the announcer's like, that goal was brought to you by Audi as we enter the Ford F-150 Final Five. And it's like, that's fucking gross. Like, Audi did not sponsor that fucking goal. Like, they just didn't. And then, like, watching TV, you see, like, a commercial about this woman who's like, oh, this shirt smells bad. It's a Backstreet Boys shirt. And then you see the fucking Backstreet Boys in, like, a poster that are just, like, singing. And, like, the Backstreet Boys were so fucking huge when I was a kid. And now they're in a goddamn commercial talking to a weird old millennial chick about like how she needs to switch to Downy so she can keep wearing her Backstreet Boys shirt. And it's just fucking gross. Like, it's like, have a little self-respect, but also like, no, I mean, not a lot of demand for Backstreet Boys right now. So I get why you're getting paid to be in a fucking Downy commercial. But like the fact that they had a good thing, and I understand the want to getting paid, but the second they started charging money for that thing, that's when they got fucked. It's like, all right, either you cared about what you were doing, or you thought you could get rich off what you were doing, and like you knew that was wrong. Yeah. So it's like they either didn't care about their message. They either didn't care about their message about like, no, like these games need to be preserved the way digital storefronts are going and the way things are costing, blah blah blah. This like we have to make these games available. It's like, but it'd also be pretty fucking cool to get a little rich off that. Like, no, fuck you. Like, you either care about the thing or you don't. And like,
and to be fair, look at all the other big emulators. Every single one is free. There's not a single other. Look at Dolphin. I mean, that's probably the most popular emulator ever.
Yeah, you know why? Because that was made 20 years ago when people still gave a shit about being called a sellout, and that was still an insult that would like hurt someone, or like,
and it's free
9X or something like that.
Yeah,
you know, like.
Dolphin's free, and they still continue to update it. I mean, it's still being worked on. So, yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Frankly, I kind of forgot that they were charging for it. So, you're right. I do think, like, by doing that, trying to make money off of, frankly, something else's success with the Switch, not a great idea.
All right. Well, is there anything else you guys want to talk about this week?
No, but can I make a suggestion for next week? Or I don't know if I'm going to be on next week because we're recording on Wednesday next week, and that's kind of an iffy day for me.
You do whatever you want, buddy.
I want an update on like where you guys get your gaming shit from. Like which websites you're using, which podcasters you listen to, which YouTube channels you check out. I would love like a little just like celebration session of like where we're getting
I like that.
Our content from, if you guys are cool with that as we start to head into spring.
I like it.
Pedro wants to know, can we talk about the Bruins playing the Isles in the playoffs? With a bunch of laughing emojis.
I mean, the Bruins are either going to lose in the first round before they even get to the Isles. Also, like are the Islanders like 4 games behind even making the playoffs? Or like, are they even a play-in team right now?
Yeah, Pedro. What's the deal?
I have no idea. I don't watch Pedro's. I can't defend Pedro's honor for him because I have no idea.
Congratulations on winning the Winter Classic 5 weeks ago against the Rangers outside. That was fun. Good job. Also, I guess you must be happy because like the Devils coach just got fired. That's got to help you out, right? Yeah. Maybe the Islanders will make the playoffs. That'd be sick. Something to look forward to, right? Something to do for you in April and May, buddy.
George, let me ask you this: while we're talking about sports, before we wrap it up here, and before Pedro insults you, and then we continue this conversation.
Before Pedro flies to Maine to murder me.
Are you? I know you're not like the world's biggest college football fan, but are you at all interested in the new college football game that EA has been working on?
I am interested in it. I watched a documentary is a stretch. I watched this like YouTube video last week that was talking about EA Big. That was talking about like that era of EA sports games.
Yeah.
And I really think like I hate to sound like a liberal cuck when I say this because like I know capitalism has ruined a lot of things, but like fucking boy howdy has capitalism really ruined video games. And the second they figured out they could make money off you after you bought the product, that's when it was game over. And so like NFL 2K5 is like one of the best games ever made. Like that game was borderline perfect. And it's because no console it could be played on could connect to the internet to get anything else. And so I really want NCAA 25 to be good. I saw that Archie Manning was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be in the game. I'm just focusing on the team." It's like, you're a fucking redshirt, dude. I don't want to hear it. Like you're not even starting for Texas. Like shut up. I want it to be good, but like I'm honestly kind of afraid with like the NIL money that like that game is somehow going to be worse and more perverse than Madden is, which is like really saying something. And I don't have to worry about buying Madden because I don't think a New England Patriot's going to be on the cover for a fucking long time right now, unless we draft Jane Daniels or Marvin Harrison Jr. and they change the sport. But I can just imagine that game being so gross and like figuring out a way to like monetize like, oh, here's Reggie Bush from his 2003 USC season. It's like, oh, the guy who like got stripped of the Heisman for accepting a car.
Yeah.
And like $500 for his mom who's about to get fucking evicted from her home or whatever. It's like, oh, like you can put him in the game, but like he can't have his Heisman trophy for being the best college football player in the country. Like, all right, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like, sure, do that. I don't know, man. Like, I might just buy like NCAA 2007 or something on GameCube.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there was something special about those old games where it was just like, you know, random players, no names. Like, it was just a football game. And obviously you had the names of the teams and the colors and whatnot. But I don't know. It was just, there's something very, very unique about that. So
it's also weird because, like, I think this is the first year where, like, the new conferences go into effect, right?
That's right.
Like, like the Pac-12 is not the Pac-12 anymore. So like I don't know how that would even begin to look.
It's gonna be interesting.
I'm sure it's gonna be fun. I can't say I'm excited to pick it up personally. And like I bought my brother-in-law, he like took my old Xbox from when I was in high school because he's like, I just want to play something when I come home from work. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And like for Christmas one year, I think I got him Metal Gear Solid 5 on 360. I got him Skyrim. I got him Far Cry 3. And I got him like NCAA 12. And like the two games he plays the most, he actually beat Metal Gear Solid 5, which I was really proud of. I'm like,
very nice.
I didn't fucking do that.
Great game.
But it's like Skyrim and NCAA 12 are like the two games he plays the most. And like I'll play with him sometimes because like that game was still fun.
It's good.
12 years ago, 13 years ago. But the the monetization of sports games is like one of the grossest things I've ever seen. In fact, I bought NHL 24 last year. I might actually just like boot that up just to talk about how egregious it is.
It's so
Dude,
funny
if you
because
You guys want to hear about that?
it's so funny because me and Pedro just talked about this on an Alpha Nerds recently, and he made a list of like, or he didn't make a list. He read off a list of like all the features that have been removed from NFL games since like 2008. And he was arguing, I think it was 2008, that like 2008 was the peak of like Madden games. And there's this extensive list on Reddit that's like 75.
Pedro, you still in the chat? Was that Vince Young on the cover? Was that Vince Young? Was that Aaron Rodgers on the cover? If he's still in the chat,
he is still in the chat. I don't remember which one it was, but he's right because like they added. I mean, I don't play Madden games, but it's funny because
he says yes, George. Yes, Vince Young.
I think it's Vince Young.
They removed all this stuff, and then he was saying that they added it back in, and he's like, "Yeah, isn't this great, guys? Like, look what the new feature is." So
those games, man, I played them all the time when I was a kid, like on PS2 and GameCube, and stepped away for a long time. And then one year randomly on PS4, I decided to try and jump back into Madden again. It was the year that Brady was on the cover. I forget what year that was, but I played like a good, 4 or 5 hours and just saw all the monetization. It's like, no.
Hell yeah.
No.
Also,
gotta get that
really quick. I know we got to wrap up soon. Really quick, I know people make fun of those who play FIFA and those who play Madden and those who play the MLB The Show, saying like, "Oh, they're not real gamers. Like those are just fucking sports games." Those games are so goddamn hard.
They're
like
hard.
When you're just like, "All right,
yes,
I'm gonna throw a bullet. I'm gonna throw a bullet pass. I'm gonna throw it outside shoulder. I'm gonna throw it away from safety coverage." Like the amount of buttons you have to remember to do everything correctly, that is a harder game than I'm gonna say like 85% of the games I play. Like that's harder than any Call of Duty shooter. That's harder than any Final Fantasy game I've played in the last couple months. Like those games are fucking hard. And so you need to put a little bit more respect on the people in your life who only play sports games.
They're far more complicated than they're made out to be.
Yeah.
Pedro said sports games are basically RPGs.
I fundamentally disagree with that.
If an RPG and if a fighting game had a baby, like you just have to like know the counters to whatever you're seeing, on top of knowing the sport of basketball, on top of knowing the sport of football, on top of knowing the sport of hockey, like just knowing how those games operate, and where you're just like, all right, they just changed their line, so like now's not a good time to push. I need to be a little bit more defensive, or like, this is cover 2 defense, so I need to throw something low and slow, or like maybe even like a run play because like they're running a 2 safety shell like in the backfield. Like just knowing shit like that on top of knowing all the goddamn buttons to press. Like those games are complicated, and the gamers who play them get unnecessarily shat on.
Agreed.
All right.
And to quote my guy Steve Austin, and that's the bottom line.
All right. Well, speaking of shat, let's flush this podcast down the toilet, shall we? Thank you guys for hanging out with us this week, and I guess Austin, roll the outro.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Frameskip. Don't forget you can find the show on social media at FrameskippPod. That's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also follow us each individually on Twitter. George is at Shortbox Summary, Seth is at Seth the 90s Kid, and I, Austin Eller, am at Austin J. Eller on Twitter. If you've got a question, comment, or topic you'd like to hear discussed on the next episode of Frameskip, you can do so by submitting it to us on social media. Email us at frameskippodcast@gmail.com or visit bit.ly/frameskipq. That's bit.ly/frameskipq. The show is typically live on YouTube every week, either on Tuesday or Wednesday. You can find our YouTube channel at bit.ly/frameskiplive. Don't forget to subscribe and be notified when we do go live, typically at about 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.